Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Chris. Today I have my friend all the way from London, Sacha, aka the Empress wears the crown. So,
Hi, Chris.
hello. So,
Hi, thank you.
thank you for definitely spending the time and connecting with me all the way from London. So, I'm excited about it.
I'm excited as well.
So,
So yeah.
one of the first things I wanted to ask you, um, the first thing on your bio on Instagram is the intuitive therapist. What
Yes.
what exactly does that mean to you? Like, could you explain that?
An intuitive therapist, I think, is pretty self-explanatory, but yeah, to kind of break it down, is somebody such as myself who approaches counseling, talking therapy with my intuitive ability. So it kind of cuts through a lot of, the kind of the longer process that therapy can sometimes take.
Right.
Therapy, people go to therapy for years,
Yes.
a lot of the time, and when you work intuitively, therapists seem to have a much more rapid results and much more rapid breakthroughs with their clients, because they're not coming from a purely clinical, psychological kind of textbook manner.
Cool.
They're using um, extrasensory perception, which is inherently within all of us.
Right.
It's commonly called our sixth sense, but it's actually our primordial sense. So by reconnecting to that and also empowering the client to even, awaken and use their own intuition to complement their own healing as they move forward.
Wow, that's awesome. So, did you feel you've always had this sixth sense, or did someone help you tap into it?
I've always had it since my mum tells me that, before I could even speak, I'd be interacting with things, giggling, speaking and communicating with things that I couldn't even, nobody else could see as
Right.
such. And then I remember my earliest memory is being about 4 years old, and there just being people in my room and just being sensitive. Nobody was really in my room. It was
Right.
just energy. But I used to run out of my room and say, Mummy, there's people in my room. Nanny's there and Bob Marley's there. I don't know what Bob Marley was doing there, but I felt he was there, and I was like 5. So, so that was that. But I thought I was kind of all alone for a long time. And then the light bulb went off, and I found my tribe as such
Wow.
about 10 years ago now. So, yeah.
Wow. So, well, before I move on, because I have a million questions to ask.
Okay. I'm sorry, I can speak so much.
That's
Sorry.
okay. The Empress wears the crown. How did you come up with that name on your Instagram?
I don't know, to be honest with you. I honestly couldn't tell you. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. And this is about 3 years ago now.
Hmm.
And I just felt guided to start. I had a previous Instagram, which was personal. It was like pictures of my dinner and
Right.
random just crap, like just stuff. And I just thought, I'm going to start an inspirational Instagram. At that time in my life, it was a pretty profound time looking back, because I was going through a lot of changes at that time. And I just felt, I'm going through a lot of changes. Surely there's other people who are out there as well.
Indeed.
So I started an Instagram, and the name was literally given to me. I personally wouldn't have chosen that,
It's a
but it was
powerful
given to
name.
me. It was given to me, and so I was just like, let's go with this, and it's been that way ever since. So,
Cool.
but
So,
yeah,
I also wanted to ask you about, did you feel any like opposition from friends and family when you like, I guess, tapped into your other senses when like 10 years ago when you first started?
yeah,
Did did people try to label you as strange or
yeah.
so how was that experience for you?
Um, in a way, it was, I suppose, a little bit hurtful because I was still quite sensitive, and but what kind of gave me a sense of what gave me a thicker skin to it was how I felt within myself,
Wow.
and the feeling of identity and the feeling of acceptance and the feeling of peace that I had never felt in my soul up until that point.
Wow.
I felt kind of just lost, kind of very unrooted, and I had so many questions. And when I, encountered the realm of spirit, I just felt like it was the missing piece to my puzzle. So that helped me to kind of not really care so much about what other people thought. But people definitely had a lot to say. People definitely,
I'm
yeah, they
sure.
did.
I'm sure.
They
Well,
did.
I think that for starters, I think that you're very brave for still choosing to pursue it and empower other people, because I'm sure there's people that are going to be watching this interview and they're probably experiencing the same things, and they for fear of not wanting to be labeled or to, I guess, scare people away, that they won't follow it. So
Yeah. But to be honest with you, Chris, like I said, I did feel a great sense of, yeah, this is my tribe. Yeah, this is, this is it. But after about, I don't know, maybe 8 months or so of, because I started actually as a medium in the Spiritualist Church.
oh
So
wow,
after about 8 months or so of development, I kind of shut down and ran away from it all
oh wow,
for a good maybe 7 years. And it was only around about, I still was interested in spiritual things, but for me to actually practice it, I shut it all away. And I went through, like I said, about 3.5 years ago now, I went through a terrible, dark period in my life. And spirit reintroduced itself to me, and my life has been on this path solidly ever since. And I've just grown and developed. And this has been the time, as I said, I started developing 10 years ago, but it's only in the last, let's call it 4 years, that I've dedicated and,
that's amazing. Now,
yeah.
based off what you just said, you said in a spiritualist church, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Both things you said about medium and spiritualist church. Well, one thing, the reason why I was interested in this from the very beginning, because almost 4 years ago, my older sister passed away, and
Hmm.
I was so distraught and depressed, to say the least. I don't even have words for it.
Sure,
And
sure.
I was actually considering, talking to a medium to try to get some answers, because I had so many questions, like, well, why her? And she had 3 kids she was leaving behind, and why not me? I don't have any kids. I don't have that type of responsibility, and
Sure.
it was my heart was heavy. So
Hmm.
going to the regular church, 'cause I was raised Christian in the church,
Hmm.
and going to the church, I didn't feel like I was receiving any type of answers or clarity. And in fact, I started to read in the Bible and see a lot of negative things, which caused me to say, I don't want to be involved in anything negative, all peaceful, positive, because that was the only thing that was uplifting me and keeping me in a good headspace, which actually caused me to start this brand, Positivity and Culture. So it's
Yeah.
funny how that works. But I've never heard of a spiritualist church. Could you
It's
elaborate that?
something that's pretty, I think it has a lot of roots in England, the
Oh wow.
Spiritualist Church movement. And even, where I studied, I took some classes at the London College of Psychic Studies, which is the oldest kind of official school of its kind.
Hmm.
And that's been established well over 100 years, maybe 120 years or so. And it was actually established by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle,
Hmm.
who wrote the Sherlock Holmes
Hmm.
series of detective stories. So, he was a respected figure in London society, and he established this school of esoteric and spiritual learning. And yeah, there are quite deep roots of it in England, and there's quite a few spiritualist churches. Like literally every kind of community has one,
Wow.
pretty
So
much. Yeah.
the difference between a spiritualist church and well, I went to Baptist, so I'll use that for an example.
Hmm.
Um, do they still look to Jesus and God for guidance?
Oh,
Or
100%,
okay.
100%. The first spiritualist church I went to was called St. John's Spiritualist Church,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like a pastor,
Mm-hmm.
an in-house pastor.
Wow.
For me to explain the Spiritualist Church, it's very similar to the kind of Baptist, Pentecostal, Christian denominational church, because it works very much with the realm of spirit, and
Right.
with the realm of the mind, body, and spirit being linked as well. There's great awareness of that and acceptance of that within the Baptist, Pentecostal kind of frame, whereas you don't get that in so much in like the Catholic Church or
Right.
the Protestant Church, because they're very much sitting and listening.
Right.
They don't so much take matters into their own hand and really kind of, you know,
Yeah.
discover things for themselves. But the Spiritualist Church works very much on a vibration of universal love and light.
Wow.
I've seen Muslims in there. I've seen Jews in there. I've seen atheists in there.
Wow.
You know, it's a kind of open door place that just deals with spirit and spirit.
That's
You
that's
know.
actually an amazing concept. I've never heard of it at all.
Hmm.
And growing up, people, my elders would say things such as tarot readings and extra spiritual connections, and
Sure.
that was stuff would be demonic. That's how we were
Yeah.
raised. And
Yeah.
I'm no longer religious anymore. I'm more spiritual. I do have a connection
Hmm.
with God or the universe or whomever you want to connect with, whoever you want to label him as. But so that's why I'm very much so curious about this, and I'm very curious about the spiritual church. I've never heard of that, so that's awesome. I'm glad I learned about
Yeah.
that today.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
yes. So with what you do now, do you still combine that with being a medium?
Well, a lot of my readings, I market myself more, like I said, as an intuitive.
Right.
Clairvoyance, mediumship, that's an advanced intuition.
Right.
That's intuition and then some,
Right.
because you're actually in communion
Hmm.
with the realm of spirit.
Right.
There are, even in the realm of spirit, there's different layers, there's different levels.
Right.
So you can work more, as a medium, you work more in the astral planes,
Hmm.
which is kind of one dimension above Earth as such. It's
Oh.
the realm of spirit. And then when I work more in a healing capacity, I usually transcend that dimension
Okay.
and
The
move
next
up
level.
into the spiritual dimension, which is the realm of ascended masters such as Jesus, such as Buddha,
Right.
the realm of angels, archangels, and things like that. So that's more the essence
Right.
of the spiritual realm. That's the realm for healing and that kind of spiritual work.
That's. I'm just like in shock. This is all new information. I've never even read about it or heard about it. So this is
Well, you're going to
interesting.
be reading, so I'm going to give you a book list. So you're going to
Definitely.
be doing some reading
For
pretty
sure.
soon.
I'm excited. Also, I also seen on your page the other day when you said you were going to teach about chakras. I seen that
Yes,
you had crystals on there. So
yes.
how does crystals play a part into spirituality? Because I always see it, but I never knew the connection.
Okay, well, my next class next week is actually all about crystals.
Oh
So,
wow.
okay, so crystals. Crystals work on the vibe of energy.
Hmm.
We are energy.
Yes.
We have an energetic field
Right.
around us, aura,
Hmm.
an electromagnetic field, sorry, an aura. And your aura is individual, it's personal to you. So it contains a kind of hardware of you, of your makeup, your emotions, your even your past experiences and things like that. And when people say, for instance, if somebody's depressed, their aura becomes a lot heavier. That kind of
Right. You can
the
feel.
rain cloud
Hmm.
situation, that heavy, oppressive, it's a darker, cloudier essence that clairvoyantly you
Right.
can kind of feel, you can see. Now, crystals, their structure, their electromagnetic field is incorruptible,
Mm.
and they align any energies that come into contact with them. So for instance, if I was to hold this crystal, for instance, which is a selenite. This is a really high vibration. It's one of the few crystals that never need cleansing as well.
Wow.
So it carries a very high vibration. And this particular crystal corresponds with the crown chakra, and the crown chakra being at the crown of the head. And the crown links you with universal consciousness, with the higher realms of spirit, with divine, with the divine, and with your own divinity as well. Now, as I said, the crystals, they align and regulate and amplify energy. If I take two crystals, for instance, this is an Amazonite, and this is a citrine quartz. Citrine quartz has a much higher vibration because it's quartz based, which has got a lot of water, a lot of oxygen within it. So its energy is very light, very high,
Right.
very fast vibration. This Amazonite is slightly denser, slightly slower vibration. And if I was to take these two crystals and kind of just calm my breathing down, center myself, and then begin to circulate the crystals around each other, you will begin to feel the electromagnetic force field around them. It becomes almost like two magnets. So you feel the attraction, you feel the resistance against them. They emit a frequency, they emit a sound, a very high-pitched sound, albeit, which is outside of kind of our range of hearing ability. But yeah, I find them incredibly helpful. I have at least one or two crystals on me, at least. Sometimes I have many more on me at any given day. And I find them incredibly supportive. And like I said, they work on many different frequencies, and they can be used for alignment or to amplify or to regulate so many different chakras within the body.
Wow.
And so many different things. I find them incredibly supportive.
That's awesome. You just cleared that up for me because I didn't know the connection, but I
Yeah.
always see it. So it was kind of like a blank space for me, and you just made it make sense.
Well, thank you. And also as well, the crystals, they're from the earth, and
Right.
they all are, individual. This is a fluorite. I've got here a ruby and zolzite. They each have their own personality, if you like, and they're all as old as the earth,
Wow.
literally. Some of these crystals are millions of years old.
Right.
So encoded within them is energy, vibration from
Then
the dawn of time.
that's a great
And
way to look
you're
at it.
tuning into that energy. That energy is linking in with you. It's amazing.
Yes, that's definitely amazing. So I heard you say earlier that the first crystal that you showed me that was good for the crown chakra. Yeah,
Selenite.
you said that it
Yeah.
doesn't need to be cleansed.
It's one of the few crystals that don't. Yeah.
Right. So you mean cleanse with sage?
Sage is one way of cleansing. But there's other ways of cleansing crystals as well. Some crystals, selenite for instance, can't be placed in water because it will literally begin to dissolve.
Okay.
But water is one way of cleaning a crystal. For instance, I could clean a quartz with water. The most common way to cleanse them is grounding, which is placing them on grass, on Mother Earth,
Right.
and just to be kind of cleansed and recharged, almost like batteries.
Right.
They're basically energetic batteries.
Right.
And so they can be recharged by the elements. So there's the smoke element of sage or incense. There's the water element. You can cleanse them through the earth element by connecting them to the earth, or sunlight or moonlight.
That's amazing. So is that similar to I believe it's called earthing when
Yeah.
okay, because I've recently read about that where you basically go barefoot on moist grass and basically you receive like the energy from the earth into your
Yeah.
body. That's
You can do it on moist grass, you can do it on dry grass, you can do it on the beach, you can do it anywhere that you feel a connection to the earth. preferably somewhere in nature, you know, like away from the city,
Right.
because that in itself will have a much higher vibration. Energy flows a lot more freely. There's a lot less pollution, electromagnetic frequency, other people's energy, you know,
Right.
to combat with, even other electromagnetic energies such as Wi-Fi or mobile signals, electromagnetic kind of. Oh, sorry, I just saw your cat in the background. I'm just like, what
Oh
is
yeah, that's
that?
my cat.
I'm like a bit scared, but yeah. So out in nature,
Hmm.
as far away from civilization is the best. But yeah, anyway, you can even earth by connecting to a tree
Right.
because the roots of the tree are
Are
connected to the
connected.
earth. You can ground yourself by holding a flower, for
Mm.
instance, even, you
That,
know,
yes.
anything that's earthy, connected to the earthly realm, comes from the earth, will reconnect you with that essence because it represents that essence as well, and it still carries that essence within it.
Right. Now it explains a lot for me because first of all, I'm very different from everybody in my family. Like I'm like them, but I'm very different.
Yeah,
For example, I'm
yeah.
the only one that's curious about this conversation that we're talking about,
Mine too.
and
My family as well. Yeah.
yeah, I'm completely different, and I'm also always going hiking, and I love being around animals, and I feel at home when I'm near the water, whether it's the beach, a
Yes.
lake, a waterfall.
Mhm.
I feel really at home and at peace. So a lot of times when my mind is heavy, I like to go hiking, take my dog, even if it's
Oh,
just us, and I feel really at peace. And you just kind of made sense as to why that
yeah.
is.
That's why exactly because the energy there is, it's higher. It's a purer energy, and it's almost. I remember, for instance, a few years ago, I went to New Zealand,
Hmm.
and that's literally as far away from civilization as you can get.
Right.
Um, it's about the same size as the UK, but there's only 1 million people there.
Oh yeah.
You
So
know, the energy is like, whoa, I could think so clearly. Everything was just sharper. All of my senses were sharper.
hmm,
And it remains. I've been all around the world. That place there remains
it
one of
sticks
the
out.
best places because it's pure. It's like being on another planet.
Right.
Literally, you know.
You making me want to go there and like
You should.
make
I want to go
put it
back
on my
there as
to-do
well.
list.
It's amazing. So yeah.
Cool. Also, I wanted to ask about spirits. So,
Okay.
growing up, of course, Baptist or whatever, we learn about like bad spirits and how you know they can be. One spirit can jump off someone else onto you. Do you find that same thing in your beliefs as well, or is it
Yes,
different?
that definitely can happen.
Okay. Because my mom always
Um,
says that, and I'm like, Mom, like I didn't know if she's over exaggerating or not. I wanted to confirm with you.
well, every spirit needs a vessel
Right.
for starters, okay? Um, and especially in the realm of spirit, spirit sees spirit, okay? So, for instance, as I just described the aura, the
Mm-hmm.
auric field around your body,
Right.
that will be perfectly visible um, to another spirit, for
Hmm.
instance. And when your light, especially if you've been through some rough times and you've carried a lot of heaviness in your energy field and you've had a kind of, because like attracts like, so if you've got a heaviness around you, if you've got a kind of a dark heavy aura, other souls, other spirits, I suppose, on that same frequency will kind of be drawn to it as well, almost like yeah, like
That makes
uh
sense.
yeah, a sympathetic vibration. And when your light begins to increase, that can also be a testing time because, as I said, spirit needs a vessel.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't always like to give up their source of energy
Right.
all the time. You know, they say misery loves company. That's
Yeah.
another thing. So when you're in that space, you're attracting that energy, and they're feeding off you, and you're feeding off them, kind of thing. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that can definitely happen. And I've had experiences. I was actually speaking about them earlier today with
Hmm.
somebody, but I've had experiences in the past where I've been asleep, but I've been conscious,
Mm-hmm. That happened
and
to
I've
me
been
before.
And I've been attacked in my sleep. This was, I mean, the first time it happened, I was about 15.
Yeah.
And it was very, very scary. And my grandmother, who's I'd never met in real life, she
Right.
passed away after I was born, but I saw her vividly in my dream. And she told me to make the sign of the cross. And as I was making the sign of the cross, it was like I was being arm wrestled
Right.
because something didn't want me to do it.
Right.
And it was as I made the last connection that something lifted up off of me. Now, I could have made another symbol. Like now, for instance, I could have made, the 6-pointed Star of David.
Right.
I could have made the 5-pointed pentagram. I could have made even a Reiki symbol, These are all high vibrational symbols, such as the
That makes
cross.
sense.
It's coming from a high vibration, so it's the light will always conquer the darkness. So
Right.
as soon as you
Allow it
reach
to come
out
in.
or align yourself with that higher essence, the light will come in. And it was instantaneous. As soon as I made that last connection, like I said, I was like 15 at the time, so that was what I knew,
Yeah.
to do that. And as I did that, like I said, instantaneously this thing lifted off of me and it's like I could breathe again. And something very similar happened to me several years ago, just as I was coming out of the dark period of my life.
Right.
Just after I'd had that kind of breakthrough, I remember I was attacked once again in my sleep, and I was rescued in the realm of, in the spiritual realm. And it was very real, very vivid.
Yeah, that's amazing because my mom, she's had experiences like that as well. And she's told me about this, a lot since, I was younger. And I was like, maybe she's exaggerating, or my mom's, she's very religious, but she's in tune with God.
Of
And
course, yeah.
so she says when, she says she used to be able to hear them coming in her sleep, but she wasn't able to wake up. And by the time she attempted to, they were already on her or surrounding her. And she said she would, yell the blood of Jesus, and they would flee. And they would flee. And so she also told me to do that same thing. But I've never thought I would be in a situation like that. I'm like, maybe she's exaggerating. That was me being young. And one day, it actually happened to me where I woke up, I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. I was very conscious, and then someone walked in the room, but I couldn't speak, and they didn't know I was awake. So now I'm getting scared because I'm feeling like I'm like stuck, I'm immobile. And so I immediately closed my eyes, and I started saying the blood of Jesus and started praying, and I was able to move. And I was like, well, that was strange. So my mom was going to be pleased to know that someone all the way in London experienced the same thing.
It does very much work. Like I said, if you call upon any kind of high vibrational energy,
Because it brings your vibrations up as well.
it exactly. And even as I'm speaking to you now, because what we're talking about and stuff, there's energy just all around me now. My ears have gone.
Right.
And I'm just like, okay, so I'm just holding on to my crystal just to stay grounded, because even when you're speaking about certain subjects, if you're speaking about high vibrational subjects, they come.
Wow.
Not anything low. Nothing low can even enter
I know
my
what you
home.
mean.
It can't. I surround my home with several things, including the blood of Jesus, so they can't come around here. But high vibrational entity as well. As soon as I start doing reading, as soon as I start saying my prayers, as soon as I start speaking about them,
Right.
they come.
That's amazing. So,
and you can feel the change in the atmosphere. Like I said, my ears have gone. Even though I'm wearing headphones, but I can hear the shift.
frequencies. Yeah.
Feel the shift, yeah.
Now that's also something. Ever since I was younger, I could go in a room and automatically could tell if I did or didn't like the person. And then a lot of people would say, "Well, how do you know? You didn't get a chance to meet him. You didn't get a chance to talk to him." And I didn't have an explanation. So then when I would try to give them a chance, they would end up doing something that was horribly wrong. And I'm like, I should have listened to my first intuition, which told me that they weren't a good person.
Exactly. And this is the thing we are conditioned to disregard, your
Right.
primordial sense.
Right.
That's
Wow.
that's something deep within you that knows. It's figured something out, like that your head hasn't quite caught up with yet,
Right.
or but it's a feeling, it's a gut feeling, it's your solar plexus chakra, which is in your
Right.
stomach. They call it your gut feeling, your gut
Yeah.
instinct. That's your solar plexus. And your solar plexus, historically, thousands of years ago, by philosophers and the first kind of doctors, and they would call it the second brain in your stomach.
Mm.
Now, modern science teaches us that the gut has more nerve endings than the brain.
Right.
So the gut is a major
You can feel more vibration.
antenna of energy. Yeah, it picks up upon a lot of energy, and it feeds that knowledge
Right.
then to your head. So you will feel with your gut. And it's interesting because even I say to my class, which I
Mm-hmm.
teach, I say to people, if, for instance, if you was to be blindfolded and had your headphones put in, you couldn't hear anything, you couldn't see anything. So the
Mm-hmm.
two senses you rely on the most, your sight and your
Yeah.
hearing, if those were taken away from you and you was led into a room where, I don't know, there was a group of people gathered for like a wake
Right.
or a funeral or something, if you walked in the room, you could feel that energy. You could
Mm-hmm.
feel the somber tone.
Yep.
If you was to then be blindfolded and have no hearing and go into a room where there was people gathered to celebrate a wedding or a christening or something like that, you'd feel the energy.
Right.
You could, and someone said to you, which was the room where they were celebrating life, and where was the room where they was mourning death.
Right.
Without being able to see, without being able to hear, you could tell. You can feel it. Your body will pick up on that energy.
Yeah, that's also amazing because also when I was a teenager, a friend of mine, we went to Atlantic City, to the boardwalk, and we were going to get on the roller coaster. It was a wooden roller coaster, and
Oh
we was just
gosh.
waiting in line, and I was like, nah, something was telling me like, let's not do that. And then he was like, oh, you scared, you scared. And I'm like, I'm not really scared. Just something's telling me not to do it. And
Yeah.
when I didn't do it, that was good because he didn't do it. And when I got home, we saw in the news that roller coaster actually fell.
Yeah.
And then we were just there. So to me,
Yeah.
that was like confirmation. Always listen to my gut feeling.
Yeah.
So that was amazing. Now, also you do the tarot readings, correct?
I do. Yeah.
So how exactly does that work? I've heard of, a lot about it, but I'm not sure how it
The
works.
tarot works it's interesting actually, because playing cards that people, play poker with now
Mm-hmm.
were actually originally designed for divination.
Mm.
And divination is communicating with the divine.
Wow.
Yeah. Um, so then you now have obviously what we know as the tarot cards. I would show you them, but they're in my room next door,
Okay.
unless you want me to go and get them. But
It's
so
up to
I've
you.
got, well, actually, I've got some on me here. Oh gosh, hang on one second. Bear with
Okay.
me. Bear with me
All
one
right.
moment, because the ones I've got here are angel tarot,
Okay.
but the regular tarot is next door in my other room. So yeah, sorry, I had to
That's okay.
just figure out that. Okay, so I've got here
I see.
angel tarot. Now, the reason I quite like to use these cards in particular are because they are all angelic. I love working with angelic energy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very pure, it's very safe, it's very just unconditional love
Right.
and healing and things like that. It's a beautiful, beautiful energy. When I use my regular tarot cards, there are some cards on there which people who maybe are not spiritually experienced, they can find those cards pretty intimidating and quite intense,
Right.
because there's such cards on there such as the devil or death
Mm-hmm.
or like the hanged man, which it's not a bad card, but the name of it, I suppose,
Right.
conjures up some kind of, you know,
Negative feeling.
yeah, negative kind of associations. But yeah, so the devil card, the death card, like I said, these are things that people find a bit funny. But the angel tarot, they have the same principle. So they have the minor arcana and the major arcana. So you've got the major arcana, which deal with more kind of archetypal energies. You've got like the Empress, the Emperor, you've got the Magician, you've got kind of archetypal energies, and they kind of summarize more. Sorry, it's really hard to, I'm trying to explain it in a way that's quite digestible
Right.
for people who are not familiar. So they're solid journey markers and indicators. And then you've got the minor arcana, which are broken down into 4 suits. So you've got, in the regular tarot, there would be wands, swords, pentacles, and cups, which in the angel tarot have been changed to earth, air, fire, and water. And so, for instance, cups is water, and cups in regular tarot represents love and emotions, and water in the angel tarot represents love and emotions, and so on and so forth. So they represent more, like they fill in the gaps.
Yes. So,
So yeah.
how do you decide which ones you're going to use based off the person you're doing a reading for?
Well, what I usually do is I usually use the Angel Tarot as my kind of go-to deck. I can use those to do many different types of readings. So whether people want more of a basic kind of past, present, and future 3-card spread, or whether people want something called the Celtic Cross,
Right.
which is a formation of tarot cards which paints a picture. So it's like a snapshot of your life
Right.
as it is. It tells you what's going on, what's kind of blocking, what's going on subconsciously, what's happened in the near past, what's going on in the present, what's going to go on in the near future, your power in the situation, energy around you, your hopes, your fears, and then you've got the outcome as well. So it's kind of like it's a 10-card spread, and it's a real snapshot. Also, I can do a relationship reading, I can do a career reading with these cards. So they're multi-purpose. They have 77 cards. I'm sure it's 77. Yeah, 77 cards in the deck. So it's a pretty big deck. And yeah, they're just a really good general cards. But I have got many other cards, which I'll use if I feel guided to. But these are my all-round, everyday, everything cards.
So I've always been extremely intimidated by the idea of someone doing a reading based off cards.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of other people have been too. Should people feel intimidated by that?
No, and if they do, I think fear a lot of the time comes from a lack of knowledge.
Yes, I agree.
So I try my best. I mean, one thing I don't do is I don't solicit for readings.
Right.
So I don't go and like ask people, do you want to have a reading? I don't ever do that. People come to me.
Right.
And so for that person to come to me, they're using their own divine free will, number one.
Right.
And number two, I appreciate that more, because I feel like, okay, this person's coming to me for a reason. I believe very much in synchronicity. I don't believe in coincidence or,
Yes.
everything is divinely orchestrated. And,
my mom says that too.
Yeah, it really is. There's an intelligence greater than ourselves. And it brings everything into alignment as and when it should. The cards are spiritual tools, I suppose, and they really just kind of help to paint a picture. And I mean, what's good about them, what I find is quite good about them, is they're tangible. People can see them for themselves, and I can show the person the card, and when they see it and how it corresponds to their life, they're like, oh wow, that totally makes sense. That's exactly what it means so much to me. I can read without cards. And I do readings without cards, but it is quite handy sometimes to have something tangible, and it helps to sometimes look into a situation. But yeah, I don't think it's anything to be intimidated by. And if people are intimidated, then I say, maybe now is not the right time for you.
Right.
Maybe go and do some research, let it kind of marinate, and then, let it come around again when you're ready.
Right. Well, I'm definitely going to have to get you to do a reading for me one
Oh,
day.
I'll do a reading for you. That's no problem. We can do that whenever.
Okay, that'll be amazing.
Yeah.
Especially because I feel like for my family, who I believe is very closed minded for the
Yeah.
most part, because they know what they know, and they're comfortable with what they know. So
Hmm.
it'll be interesting for me to be the one to say, I did it and this was the results, and it'll make a believer out of them. So I think that's cool. But so you said you went to school for it, correct?
I did. Yeah. I went and did one class,
Hmm.
which was like a 2.5 month course.
Hmm.
And it was at the London College of Psychic Studies.
Mm.
And the college, there's lecturers, there's tutors who are at the top of their field internationally, and they come and they teach, and it's one of the best places you can study, actually.
I
And
never
I went
knew that
there.
there was a school for it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I learned so
You
much.
guys, you need to come to England.
For
There's a lot
sure.
of esoteric history here, and the spiritualist movement it's underground to a
Hmm.
certain extent, but it's also pretty. If you scratch the surface,
Right.
you'll find a spiritualist church in every community.
Wow.
So yeah.
I'm definitely more and more interested as we speak about it, and I'm learning so
Where
much.
are you based?
I'm in Philadelphia.
Okay, there's probably one in your city.
It probably is, and I'm just completely unaware of it.
Okay, because I'm gonna have to Google it now. Now that you've said that,
I'm definitely going to look
But yeah, there will be. I'm sure. I'm certain there will be.
for sure. Also, I wanted to ask about the Reiki.
Reiki, yeah,
Reiki. Oh, it's pronounced
yeah,
Reiki.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't know what to call it either at first. When I first learned, I was like, "What's that?" I've
And
probably called it something worse than Reiki, Reiki or something. I don't know.
so
But
I,
yeah,
I just connected with someone earlier for another interview, and she's more like a holistic doctor, and she was explaining to
yeah.
me a lot about Reiki. She said she learned about it in India,
Okay,
and
yeah.
yeah, so I wanted to get your perception of it, like your breakdown of it, so I can further understand it.
Reiki is. I was talking to somebody about this today as well. There's two kind of styles of Reiki. There's Yusui Reiki, and then there's Seikin Reiki. There's actually more than two, but the two main ones,
Hmm.
or the main one is Yusui, and the other one, which I've done, is Seikin. And then you've got Angel Reiki and various other kinds of Reiki. But Reiki is symbols
Hmm.
um, that were given to people or a person
Hmm.
by, let's call it a high vibrational entity,
Hmm.
um, for healing, for the purpose of healing.
Right.
And I can't speak so much on Yusui Reiki because I'm quite vague on it, so I don't want to pretend that I know everything about it. But from what I do know, from what I can recall, there was a man called something Yusui,
Hmm.
something, and he went off into the wilderness. This is in Japan, and he lived up on a mountain, and he just spent a long time in meditation and in prayer, and I think he was fasting and praying, and then this entity appeared to him and gave him certain symbols, and these symbols were encoded within him, but also within his energy. And then he then went on and passed this healing on and this knowledge on, and it became an initiation.
Right.
And they call it attunements. When you are initiated into into Reiki, they call it an attunement because you're attuned to that vibration, and Reiki stays with you. Once you're attuned, it's within your energetic field forever. It's within your spirit forever, you know?
Yeah.
The Reiki I've done is Seiki Reiki, and this has an Egyptian background. And basically the man who discovered Seiki Reiki, he was on a tour of the pyramids at Giza, and he broke away from the tour group and he hid in the pyramid, and he ended up staying in the king's chamber of the pyramid overnight. And it was during this time that he was locked in the king's chamber that he was visited as well by a energy, an entity who gave him certain symbols, which were passed down onto him, and then he initiated others and so on and so forth. So it becomes like a kind of, not a hierarchy, but it becomes like a lineage,
Right.
if you will. But Reiki, yeah, what Reiki basically does is it is the channeling. I become a conduit for this high vibrational Reiki energy. I'm not giving you my energy. I'm not giving you Reiki. I'm opening myself up to spirit in the name of Reiki for this Reiki healing vibrational energy to be channeled through me and into my client. There's even certain symbols, Reiki symbols, that can be used for healing of emotional issues. There's Reiki symbols to heal all kind of any low vibrational energy. There's Reiki symbols for abundance and for grounding your energy. And there's Reiki symbols as well for sending healing across all directions of time and space. So Reiki can be used in person. It can be used, you can send Reiki into the past to your ancestors. You can send Reiki in 1,000 years into the future to your descendants. You know, you can, I can send Reiki to you right now.
Right.
You know, time and space is an illusion in healing and in spirit, and yeah.
Wow. So, I have two questions for people like myself and you. Well, you and myself, who are, I guess you would call the black sheep. Some people call it the chosen one. I don't know the proper term. What do you think what do you think that's from? Like, because we're completely not the same as our family and how we grew up.
I feel like, well, first of all, I feel like we choose our family
Right.
before birth. So there are certain journey points and road markers on our respective paths. A lot of the time, you're born into families that, you know, you've spent many lifetimes with in one form or another. You know, your mother now could have been your sister in another life, or she could have been your daughter in another life. But you've incarnated in this form now to learn a different dynamic relationship, you know?
Yes.
And a lot of the time, there's usually in every family, there's at least one person who has a spiritual sensitivity.
Wow.
And that person is usually, well, a lot of the time, especially in my experience, that person is then used to be the beacon that lights the other candles,
Yes.
you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah. And you do that by becoming an example, by embodying the philosophy and the energy which you have, you know, which has been revealed to you.
Right.
And when you encompass that energy, it can be seen, it can be felt, it can't be ignored. You know, energy doesn't lie.
That's true.
And people can see that, and people are like, wow, you know,
Yes.
and they see how it's working for you, and it reverberates out throughout your own world.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Because, you know, like I said, growing up, I'm very similar to my family, but I'm definitely different. But I also feel like I'm the glue that keeps everybody, together in some way, shape, or form. And
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like that's a heavy burden. Is that like, does that come a part of, I guess, being a beacon?
Yes, but and it's also part of being a sensitive person because
I'm very sensitive
as a
inside.
sensitive soul, you feel the emotions of other people,
Right,
and something which sensitive people have to be quite mindful of is being aware of what is yours and what you've picked up upon,
right,
what is not yours, what you've
right.
absorbed,
Yes,
So when you become aware of what is yours and what's not, you then become even more sensitive, because you become even more sensitive to your own, the sound of your own soul, and also to other people as well.
right,
You can really identify. I know a lot of people who've, been on Prozac and things like that for years because they're depressed.
right.
But really, they're super sensitive, amazing people.
Like an
But
empath.
it's, yeah, like super empath, super empath. So the feelings are so heightened that they take certain substances, and it doesn't have to be antidepressants, or it can be alcohol, or it can
Right,
be any other kind of illegal drugs even. They take those things to block out everything that they're feeling because they don't know how to process it,
right.
and they don't know that it's not their, half the time it's not even their, it's not even their issue. They've just
Wow.
absorbed it,
That
and they don't know
makes,
how to transmute that energy and release that energy, and.
yes, that makes a lot of sense. Also, with you were speaking on reincarnation, and do you feel that, like, for example, my grandma or great grandma would say, I always had an old soul. I was very responsible as a young child, like taking care of my younger sister. When because my parents, they were on drugs when we were younger, and
Hmm.
as I got older, around 11, they got completely off it, and they were good ever since. But during that time, I was like my sister's protector, and like always made sure she was cool. And we're 4 years apart. So for me being 6 years old and she was 2 years old, I still took on like I guess a parent role. And I've always like taken care of younger people or even older people at this point, but it's kind of always been in me. So do you feel that maybe as an old soul, and probably I was like an older person in another lifetime?
Yes, but more importantly, what I want to say to you is not just yes to because I think that as well. I stand in agreement with you on that. But yes to the question that you've asked yourself that for a long time.
Yes, I
So I want to say yes, yes, and yes to you in regards to that. And we're never given a burden that's
hmm
too big for us to carry.
yes.
Um,
That's they also
and
say something like that in the
I
Bible.
can, yeah, exactly. And I can really relate to your story, even, through my own experiences as a child, and seeing certain things. And I wasn't even the oldest,
Mm,
but I was the only girl. And I think that affected me differently as well, because like I said, I was always sensitive.
right,
And I experienced quite a lot, and I had to be quite strong and grow up probably before should have really. But
right.
it's something which, like I said, I struggled for a long time because I thought, what do I do with all this sensitivity? What do I do with everything I'm feeling? It literally will drive you crazy.
Yes. That
It's a blessing and a curse to feel so deeply.
that
As
is exactly that. I couldn't have worded it better.
well, I've seen that. I saw that today on an Instagram picture as well, and it reminded me. It's true. It's very true. It is both a blessing and a curse. But doing what I do, and I would say it's definitely more of a blessing than it is a curse.
For sure.
It is really a blessing.
Even now, I'm definitely becoming more enlightened and evolving and growing. And I still don't know like where I'm going to end. I'm just constantly learning, and each day is like taking me to another path. And I guess I felt like a restless soul. Like
Hmm.
I moved to LA before and I was there for almost 2 years, and then I came back to Philly, and then I moved to Las Vegas and I was there for almost a year. Then I came back to Philly and I was ready to go to an island. I was just, I'm just ready to go. And I'm like trying to process this. And then, of course, you hear like more traditional, like my elders in my family would say, why don't you just stay down somewhere and just be grounded? And
Yeah, yeah.
it's difficult because I want to, but then I feel inside that I should be doing more or I should be doing something else. So it's starting to make sense to me now.
I mean, one thing I say to a lot of people is let your soul be your guide.
Right.
As long as it feels right for you, then that's all you need to
That's all the
to to
confirmation.
to know. Um, I like I said, once again, I can relate to that. I've been all over the place. I'm a bit of a gypsy myself. Like I said, I've travelled around the world. I've been around the world twice by the time I was 23,
Wow.
and I've lived in other places. I've worked in lots of different places. And even now, I'm on the other side of London from where I even grew up, and I'm
Wow.
the only person here. Like all my family on the other side of the city. Um, and I feel, I felt for a long time like, you know, a, a leaf blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
But you find your legs and you find your roots when you're meant to, and
Right.
not a moment sooner. And sometimes, you need to wander. Not all those who wander are lost.
Yes. I've read that before, and that definitely makes sense.
That's very true. That resonated with me when I heard that because I spent a long time, like I said, I spent a long time feeling really the pressures of society as well,
Right.
you know,
And
and that conformity. And when you kind of step outside of that and dance to the beat of your own drum,
hmm
that's when you experience, that's when you live.
yes, for sure. And I feel like you really just confirming a lot of thoughts that I've already had, and it makes a whole lot more sense to me now.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely glad you took the time to speak with me. And like we're definitely going to do that reading one day.